Hello everyone, welcome to Practically. We bring learning alive, and I welcome all of you in our one-shot chapter for how do organisms reproduce. And today we are going to discuss all the important topics from this chapter in just one class. So stay tuned with us till the end. So we are going to have lot of one-shot sessions for class 10, and this is the timetable for it. So today we are having for science biology section, and we also have for maths and other topics. So please do note it down and do attend. And we also have sample paper discussion. We have curated some important questions and we will discuss its solutions. So this is a timetable for the sample paper. And we also have something more to offer. We are also offering various coding session for class 10. So if you're interested in the same, then please do attend, and this is a timetable. So now let's proceed with the chapter. So there's a short disclaimer before we begin this chapter. So this chapter, reproduction, is one of the topic which causes like the highest amount of curiosity among various individuals and especially young minds. So if you have any kind of query, question, comment, then please feel free to type in the chat box, and we are there to help you out. Do not hesitate. Don't think that that what other people might think. Here we are here to learn, right? So make sure that you ask any doubt, any question, and we'll surely solve it out. And also, since this topic will be purely based on a scientific basis, since as a part of human anatomy. So with this, let's begin. So what is reproduction? So I'm sure you all have heard this term many times before, and we all know that reproduction is one of the most important feature of all the living organisms. In fact, every living creature on this earth reproduces. So let's see the technical definition of it. So reproduction is the production of offspring that are biologically like the parent organism. Okay, so this is the important part of the definition, that they are like that of parent organism. Now in case of asexual reproduction, the offsprings or the young ones, they are exactly same that of their parents, hence they are also called as clones. And in case of sexual reproduction, they are not exactly same, but they are surely like the parents. Then an individual organism needs reproduction to maintain its life, but it's also necessary for existence and for continuity of life of each species. So reproduction is not just confined to one particular individual, but also for all the living creatures as ecosystems, since all the organisms are connected with each other. So in terms of evolution, for continuing the life and species together, reproduction plays a very important role. And an organism's spends much energy to create one more individual. So reproduction is actually a very kind of complicated process, but it's also time consuming and it needs a lot of energy, since each and every step in the reproduction plays an important role, and that's what we are going to see in short today. So let's begin. So as we talked before, do these organisms create exact copy of themselves? Yes. Hello Kanchan, welcome. So here's the question you can see on the screen. Do organisms create exact copy of themselves? So what do you think? Whoever are watching, please try to interact with us. Type the answer in the chat box so that we'll get to know your thoughts. Don't hesitate. So yeah, so we know that chromosomes are present in the nucleus, okay? And chromosomes are nothing but it's a DNA, and then it is coiled, supercoiled structure, which contains the blueprints or the basic genetic information for each and every property which we have in our body. Okay, so that offspring inherits from the parents. So we have all heard about inheritance. So these particular traits are then passed down from parents to the young ones or the offsprings. For example, if someone has blue eyes and gray hairs, then there are chances that the offspring might also have, since these properties are present in the parents. So like that, there are various other traits. All the traits in our body are governed by the genes which are present on the DNA. Okay, So these are passed down from parents to the young ones, and that's how we inherit the properties. Now, creation of DNA copy is the basic event in the reproduction. Rather, this is the most important and the basic thing in the reproduction. And then to create the copy of DNA, cells use various chemical reactions. So this is something on a cellular or molecular level what reproduction is. And thus this produces two copies of DNA in a reproducing cell. So there are, as we discussed, there are various biochemical reactions involved in to create a DNA copy, so this is like, it's not absolutely reliable or accurate. There can be errors happening in the entire process. So it is to be expected that the process of copying DNA will have some variations, okay, each time. It means that when the DNA is copied, okay, it's not necessary that every time similar things are copied. I mean, there will be recombination since there are two parents. In case of sexual reproduction, there are two parents involved mainly, okay, or even if it is asexual reproduction, when it is copied, some changes might happen, and that leads to variation, okay. So variation is a very important part which leads to evolution or survival of the species. So yeah, let's see what is the importance of variation. So main thing the variation happen is for the survival. For example, here you can see this is a plate having bacteria, okay. So now we know there are various types of bacteria found in various places all over the earth. Now suppose there is a place like in temperate waters. Temperate waters means where the temperature is comparatively higher. So in such water, if the temperature suddenly increases, it can be either because of global warming or any other factor, natural biotic or abiotic factor. So when the temperature is suddenly increased, most of the bacteria will die, isn't it? But if there are some bacteria which are resistant to the heat, okay, so the heat resistant bacteria, which is a variant, which is not the original bacteria but it's a variant, they will survive, okay. So in this way the variation will help. So you can see these are the normal bacteria and this pink one are the heat resistant variant of the same bacteria. So in case of temperature rising, all the other bacteria they'll die and only the heat resistant bacteria will survive. So variation plays a very important role in survival. Yeah, so that's what variation is useful in survival of species over the time. Now, here's a question for all of you. During reproduction, the chromosome number, so we know there are, for example, in case of human beings, we know there are 23 pairs of chromosome, okay. So like that, so this is for a diploid organism. Your 2n represents a diploid organism, okay. So mainly the human beings, plants and other animals are diploid, having two sets of chromosome. And in human beings, there are 23 pairs. Similarly, if you take any organism, it can be a bacteria, it can be a fungi. If you take any organism, they'll have some number of chromosomes in them, okay. So the chromosome number 2n reduces to half, that is n, in the gametes. So we know that gametes are the very important part of reproduction, where they fuse and fertilize to give rise to the zygote, and then finally it develops into new species. So gametes, and again the original number 2n is restored in the offspring. What are the processes through which these events takes place? Okay, so what is the process in which the chromosome number decreases from 2n to half n? That is required because then only after the gametes fuse, the progeny will again have 2n. Okay, so that is what the question about. So yes, here's the answer. This happens by process of meiotic cell division. In short, we also called as meiosis. So we know there are two types of cell division. We have mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is also called as equational division because that's what we will to see ahead. It's similar to that of the binary fission happening in bacteria. So the number of chromosomes remains same, but in meiosis it is called reductional division because the number reduces. So reduces the chromosome number to half during the gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the process of formation of gametes. and diploid number of chromosome is restored by union of male and female gamete, which is technically called as fertilization. Okay, let's move ahead. Now, we had seen in the beginning that reproduction is of two types, asexual and sexual reproduction. So let's begin with asexual reproduction, and the second half of this session will discuss the sexual reproduction. So the mode of reproduction by various organisms, it depends obviously on the design of their body, the type of organism they are, and the creation of new generation from a single individual is called as asexual reproduction, since it does not involve the gametes and also the sexual organs. So when it comes from one single individual, that is the asexual reproduction, and they are of various types. Let's see the various types of sexual reproduction. So we have fission, then we have fragmentation, regeneration, budding, vegetative propagation, and spore formation. These are the various types, or you can say examples, of asexual reproduction. We'll quickly see an overview what are these and what are the examples. Since examples are very important since they are clearly asked in exam. So let's begin with the first one, that is fission. So fission, as the word says, it is basically dividing into two parts. So in which one unicellular organism divides to form new individuals. Okay, and the example for this is bacteria and protozoa. Now fission is also of two types. We have binary fission and we have multiple fission. So binary fission, the best example is amoeba. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the parent cell, and then first step is the nucleus, it divides into two. Okay, so first step is the nuclear division. The entire cell membrane and cell wall is intact, but nucleus divides, and later then the outer body, the entire cell also starts dividing into two parts, and then finally they separate to form two daughter cells, and these two daughter cells will be exactly identical to the parent. Okay, so that is one of the important feature of asexual reproduction, and that's why they are also called as clones, since they are identical to the parent, since only one parent is involved in this. Thank you, Virtual Biological Sciences, who are watching us from Pakistan. So yes, thank you for supporting us, and we are going to come up with many important topics. So keep watching and also do share if you like. Yes, moving ahead. So binary fission, as we had seen, in which a parent cell divides into two daughter cells, and the example is amoeba and leishmania. So amoeba example we had seen in the previous slide, how it divides into two, and leishmania is another example for it. So in amoeba, binary fission can take place in any plane. Okay, any plane means it's like, if like we know the amoeba structure is irregular, so it can take place in any plane. The plane here they mean by the plane of division. Okay, so these are the various planes of divisions possible. So in any plane it can take place, and in case of some unicellular organism who have complex body organism, example leishmania. Now leishmania is one of the pathogen which causes a disease called Kala Azar. Okay, so they have a whip-like structure. So here the binary fission occurs according to this. So this is the binary fission in leishmania. So this is the basic structure of leishmania. So again, the first step will be always the nucleus will divide into two parts, and now it is dividing from here. So this whip-like structure has to be maintained. So this is the plane of division. So in this way they divide into two. So this is the binary fission in leishmania. Okay, moving ahead. Multiple fission. So this is the second type of fission. First was binary, now we have multiple fission. In this also, a single cell organism divides into many daughter cells. In binary, bi means two, it divides only into two, but in multiple it divides into many. A simple difference between them. An example of this is Plasmodium. Again, Plasmodium is one of the pathogen which causes malaria, and it is a protozoa. And here you can see the example diagrammatic representation of multiple fission. So we have the cell which has the nucleus, which is a parent cell. Now again, the first step will be always the nucleus will divide. Now here, instead of only two, the nucleus divides into many nucleus, okay, and then they form a structure collectively which is called as a cyst. In this cyst also there is one more thing, the outer wall, it forms a very hard structure around it, okay. It forms a hard structure along with this multiple nucleus, and this entire thing is called cyst. And then once the cyst breaks, then the daughter cells are released. So this is example of multiple fission. Now next type of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. This is the second type which we are seeing. So in fragmentation, organism simply breaks into smaller pieces, and that's what the name also suggests. Fragments means small random pieces. So an organism breaks into small pieces, and then each piece grows into a new individual, okay. And the best example of this is Spirogyra. Here you can see Spirogyra is a green filamentous multicellular structure found mainly in ponds. So here you can see the Spirogyra, it has a nucleus and a cylindrical structure, and again it is a photosynthetic in nature, so it will have the chloroplast cells as well in it, chloroplast inside the cells. And then the fragmentation happens, any random type of fragmentation, they break in two parts, and then in each two parts develop into a new individual, okay. So this is the example of fragmentation. Yeah, so now all multicellular organism cannot divide simply by cell to cell, okay, because in multicellular organism it's not just a normal cell, but there are arrangements like that of tissues and organs. So they are organized properly, so because of which they can't simply break, because if they break simply, that organ will also break, and that cannot generate into new. So not all multicellular organisms can undergo this. So that's why there are various other mechanisms. And reproduction is also performed by specific cell type which can grow, proliferate and make other cell types as well. Now this is the third type of asexual reproduction called regeneration, okay. So in this also the organism, like, it gets cut into many pieces and then they grow into separate individual, okay. The example for this is Hydra and Planaria, okay. Now in this, what happens is there are some specialized cells which proliferate to form a cell mass, means, so we have the entire cell, and that some part of that cell will start growing and form a new mass of cell, and then that will undergo development to form various cell types and tissues. So this is example of regeneration which you can see. Now next is the fourth type of asexual reproduction is budding, okay, in which the new organism develops some small part of parent's body, and the best example for this is yeast. As you can see here, this is this example over here given is that of Hydra. So in this first, there is an outgrowth, as you can see over here, and this outgrowth starts growing more, and then finally it detaches itself from the parent body to form a separate individual. So this is example of budding. In yeast also similar structure, similar process happens. So this bud then develop into tiny individuals and then detach from the body and become new individuals. So this is an example for budding. Hello Jinesh, welcome. If you have any, whoever are watching this video, if you get any doubt, any query at any point, please do type in the chat box and let us know. Moving on to the next type of asexual reproduction, that is vegetative propagation, which is found mainly in plants. So it is a type of asexual reproduction in plants that occurs in leaves, roots and stem, okay. So now this also can occur similar to that of fragmentation or regeneration. of various vegetative parts of the plant. So these leaves, roots, stem are vegetative parts of the plant. They can break and then grow into a separate new individual. Now here the example given is of bryophyllum. So bryophyllum is a leaf. Okay, on this, so in this the vegetative propagation happens with the help of leaf. So on this leaf itself, new buds start developing, which then finally grow into a new individual. So this buds will fall off and then they will grow into new plant. So this is the vegetative propagation through leaf, which occurs in bryophyllum. That is the example given over here. Also, another example is money plant. We all have seen money plants. That is a long creeper-like structure which is mainly used for decorative purposes. So in that, it occurs through stem. Okay, when the stem cuts at different places, okay, then that grows into the new creeper or new plant. Okay. Now, spores. So this is another type of asexual reproduction through spore formation, and the example given over here is of a fungi. So spore is a cell that fungi, plants and bacteria produce. Okay, so spores are involved in reproduction, and even some bacteria make spores to defend themselves. Okay, now these spores, they have thick walls and they can also resist high temperature, humidity and other extreme environmental conditions. So here is example of a spore formation on bread. You have given, if you just leave bread outside, then you will find kind of fungus growing on it. So most of the fungi, like some they undergo the reproduction with the help of spore formation. They form a specialized structure called sporangium and the sporangiophore. So this has a lot of spores in it. When it bursts open, it releases the spores, and these spores are already present in the atmosphere. So whenever they will go and sit on any surface, if they get humidity and warmth, that is temperature, then they will start growing into a new individual. So this is the process of spore formation. Now here's a question for all of you. Why do offsprings formed by asexual reproduction exhibit remarkable similarity? I have kind of answered this question previously, but I want to hear from all of you. So please, you can just type some keywords or whatever you understood in the chat box and let us know. Why are the offsprings formed from asexual reproduction are exactly like very high? I'll not say exactly, but yeah, like very similar to that of the parents. Yes, anyone has to answer anything, please type in the chat box and let us know why they are exactly similar. Yes. So as we have seen that asexual reproduction involves single parent, and there will be no formation or even exchange of gametes. Okay, that's why the offspring looks exactly similar to that of parent, and that's why they're also called as clones over here, since they are very similar to that of the parents. Okay, so that's why they are highly remarkable similarity shown by them. Now let's move on to the sexual reproduction, which is very important part of this chapter. So the mode of reproduction that depends on involvements of two individuals before a new generation can be created, and in this both the sexes, that is male and female, are needed to produce the new offspring. So that is what the sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction are different. Asexual reproduction involves only one parent. Sexual reproduction needs to have both the parents, a male and female, which the gametes are formed respectively and which undergo fertilization. So yeah, so these gametes combine to form zygote that develops into a new individual, and it re-establishes the chromosome number and the DNA content. Okay, so that's why in case of sexual reproduction, the offsprings will be similar. They won't be exactly same, but they will be similar to that of parents. Yeah, so in very simple organisms, two germ cells are almost similar, and in complex organism, one germ cell. So here, by the germ cell means basically the gametes or the reproductive cells which they are talking about over here. So in case of simple organism, both the gametes are like almost similar in size and structure. But in complex organism, one germ cell is large and contains food stores, which is called as female gamete, whereas other is small and motile. Motile means it can move, it shows rapid movements in it, and it is called as male gamete. Like for example, in case of human beings also, yeah, hello Jyoti Devi, good evening. Welcome to today's session, in which we are discussing how do organisms reproduce. So we have completed the first part, that is asexual reproduction, and now we have moved on to the second part of this chapter, that is sexual reproduction. Okay, so if you get any query in between, feel free to ask. So if we take example of human beings also, so we know we have ovum, which is a bigger cell, and then we have sperm, which is a comparatively smaller cell. Ovum is not motile, it doesn't move, whereas sperm is motile, it can move, it can swim through, as you can see over here. Okay, so yeah, now in this also, in sexual reproduction also, we are going to see two parts: sexual reproduction in plants, sexual reproduction in animals. So let's begin with the first part of it, sexual reproduction in plants. Yes, Jyoti Devi, exam to be held or not? Well, yeah, exam will surely happen, but then the dates and the timetable and all, it's yet to be updated. We'll soon be receiving the notification from CBSE. Till then, stay tuned. But whatever it is, our study preparation should not stop, right? Because anyways, at the end, we have to give the exam in some form. So why not use that time to strengthen our concepts and to learn it more nicely? Okay, so don't worry right now ki exam will happen or not. Just focus on understanding the concept and learning it. Okay, because if you're well prepared now, whenever the exam happens, you will be very confidently able to give. Okay, yeah. So let's see the reproduction in plants, and to know that, we first need to know the different parts of a flower, since flower is basically the part which involved in the sexual reproduction of plant. Rather, in one way you can say flowers are the sexual reproductive organs of plants. So yeah, there is lot of syllabus which is not completed. How will you give the exam? Don't worry, like obviously they won't conduct the exam immediately. They will give you some time, and if you see, we are covering lot of topics. In one shot itself, we are covering the entire syllabus, and we have also shown the timetable in between. So in just few days, we'll be covering the entire syllabus for maths and science both. So stay tuned with us, and if you just attend our sessions, you will be surely able to not just complete the syllabus, but also revise it and learn it nicely. Okay. So, and if you have not downloaded the Practically app yet, please do download, because all these PPTs, this data will be uploading on the Practically app, from where you can download these PPTs, and also we'll be also giving sample papers, right? So that also you can download and solve. Okay, so stay tuned with us. Yeah, I can understand. So no problem, we have covered various topics from state board as well. We already have it on our channel, or we have some of the topics, most of the topics we also have on the our Practically app. So just go through that, and if you get any query, you can ask us in any live session. Okay, so don't worry. Right now, let's focus on understanding the topic and learning it. Okay, so let's proceed ahead. So these are the different parts of flower. So the floral whorls, there are two types of floral whorls: the non-essential and the essential. Non-essential ones are calyx and corolla, and essential ones are endometrium, gynosium. I'm sure all of you have studied these in your previous classes as well. Okay, we are going to just see them a little bit detailed and how they will help in the reproduction. Okay, yeah, welcome Jyoti. So yes, non-essential whorls, the first one is calyx. So as you can see, this is the calyx, which is present, just where at the base of the flower. So it is the outermost wall of the flower, and it is mainly green in color, so it is photosynthetic in nature, and collectively it is called calyx, but every part of the calyx, individual part, is called as sepal. Okay, just we need to remember this term. And what is the function of calyx? Well, the main function is protection of flower in the bud condition. I'm sure all of you have seen flowers on trees. So in bud, you can only see the green color structure, and then that is completely green, so calyx is covering, and then slowly as the flower blooms, the inner petals are visible, but still the calyx, the outer calyx, still remains intact. Okay, so that is the main function, and it also plays role in photosynthesis. And hairy calyx helps in dispersal of fruits. So hairy calyx means on some calyx there will be some tiny hair kind of structure. So they help in dispersal of fruits. Once the entire process of fertilization happens, fruit formation happens, in that step it helps. Okay. Corolla, the second non-essential wall. So this is the individual part of corolla are called as petals. So this entire colorful structure which you can see over here is the corolla, and the individual part are the petals. They are mostly colored and scented. Function, obviously the important function is attraction. Okay, the bright color attracts birds and insects. For what? Pollination. Why we need to attract? Now we know that plants, okay, they will also produce pollen grains which are having the male gamete, which has to go to the female, which has to fuse with the female gamete. So they need some medium, right? So mainly the insects, birds, they provide as the medium for the pollination. So to attract them, so that the insects and birds come and sit on the flower, they have this colorful petals with scent as well. Okay. Now moving on to the essential whorls, we have the androecium, okay, in which each stamen, so now we can see the parts of it. We have the androecium. So in androecium we have the stamen, and the sub parts of it, it has a long structure which extends this, is called the filament, and then the upper structure is the anther, which holds the pollen grains. These are the tiny pollen grain like structure. You can even see, if you take a hibiscus flower, you can see at the tip of it, you will find the yellow color thing. If you just open it and touch it, you will find very tiny yellow pollen grains. Okay, so next time when you go to a garden or go outside, do observe all these parts, because biology is all about observing and studying the nature, the different things around us, and including our own body. Okay, so whenever you just see things, just try to recollect these concepts, and it will be very helpful for you to revise as well. Okay, so yeah, so the stamen represents the male reproductive organ. It consists of stalk, filament or anther, and pollen grains are produced in the pollen sacs, which are the microsporangia. Then moving on to gynosium, which is the second essential whorl. So gynosium is the female reproductive part, okay, and it is made up of one or more carpels. So here you can see a carpel over here. Then it has the base of it is the ovary, the enlarged base, having the ovules. So ovules are nothing but they contain the female gamete, and then we have style and stigma at the tip. This is the part which will receive the pollen grain. Okay, so yeah, so that's what written here. Ovary is the enlarged basal part, and the elongated tube is the style, and then stigma is at the tip, which receives the pollen grains. Okay, simple, very simple part of this. Now let's move on. How does the reproduction happen? So for that, we know the male gamete, that is the pollen containing the pollen grains, has to fuse with the female gamete, which is the ovules over here. So for that, the transfer of pollen grains needs to happen from stamen, that is, which is a part of androecium, to stigma, which is a part of gynosium. Okay, so there are two types of pollination. One is self-pollination. So as the word says, self, transfer of pollen grains in the same flower. Now you might wonder how come it will happen in same flower. So let's understand this concept. There are two types of flowers. Okay, we have the unisexual flowers, and then we have bisexual flowers. Okay, so unisexual flowers will have only stamen or stigma. Okay, it will have either one of them. So it can be, if it has stamen, it will be the male flower, it has stigma, it will be a female flower. Whereas bisexual flowers will have both stamen and stigma. Okay, so since they have both male and female part, they are termed as bisexual. And most of the flowers you see around are bisexual. Like I gave you example of hibiscus flower. Okay, so hibiscus flower, if you observe, it will have both the stamen, that is the endometrium part, and the top of it you will have the stigma. Okay, so self pollination can happen only in terms of, like, only in case of bisexual flower. Okay, cross pollination will happen when the transfer happens from one flower to another, okay, by various agents like wind, water, or even the biological agents. Now once the pollination happens, what happens? So see, this is a flower, okay, from which, you know, the pollen grains are released, and from the anther the pollen grains are released, and then they come and sit on the stigma, that is the tip of the carpel or the gynosium. So once they sit on the tip, they start producing pollen tube. So these are the pollen tubes, a long structure which you can see over here are the pollen tubes, and these pollen tube contain sperm nuclei, which are the male gamete. Okay, and they finally reach to the ovum, the ovule. Okay, so this ovule has the egg nucleus, which is the female gamete. Okay, so in this it will fuse with the egg nucleus, and it will lead to the zygote formation, and then zygote will lead to embryo formation, which will, when the seed finally will grow into seedling, which will finally grow into the plant. Okay, so this is in short the life cycle or the entire process of reproduction in plants. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, the pollen grain sits on the stigma, and it produces a long pollen tube having the male nucleus or the male gamete in it, and it will fuse with the ovum, and it will form the zygote and the endosperm, which is used for providing nutrition. So in this way, and then finally it will develop into seeds, and the outer part will develop into a fruit. Okay, so this structure thing over here in short describes the entire process of reproduction in plants. So yeah, that's what is explained over here in short. If you have any query in this, please feel free to ask. We are here to solve your doubts. Okay, let's move ahead. Yes, anyone has any query, please do ask. So I have a question for you. Why cannot fertilization takes place in flower if pollination does not occur? Okay, so we have seen pollination is an important step in reproduction, but if it doesn't happen, then why cannot fertilization takes place in flowers? Yes, those who are watching the session, can you please try to answer? Please type in the chat box, whoever are watching today's session, and try to answer this question. Why does fertilization takes place in flower if pollination does not occur? Why cannot fertilization takes place in flower if pollination does not occur? Yes, anyone with any answer, try to answer this question. I'll give you just few seconds. Type in the chat box and let us know. Okay, let's see the answer. So pollination is a process in which transfer of pollen grains occurs from anthers to stigma. Okay, so if there is no pollination, what will happen? The pollen grain, which is a male, having the male gamete, cannot come in contact with the female gamete, and if there is no contact between male and female gamete, there will be no fertilization. Fertilization will not take place. Okay, simple. Now let's move on to reproduction in humans. So humans reproduce sexually. We have, again, like that of plants, we have the male gamete and the female gamete, and they need to fuse to undergo fertilization and form zygote. Okay. So how does this process start? So it begins from the puberty. So puberty is a period, okay, where a person, a child rather, it is a transition period from childhood to adulthood, and that period is called as adolescence, and in which lot of physical changes takes place in the bodies. Okay, so what are those? So we have, so there is no set age for that, since puberty in some cases can start quite early, and some cases it cannot start, it can start later as well. Okay, so there are various changes which takes place in the body, which we are going to see ahead. So generally for female, the puberty can start anywhere between 8 to 13 years. Okay, but like mainly the physical changes will be seen around 10 to 11 years. Whereas in case of males, it starts little later. It's like somewhere between 10 to 14 years. Okay, so let's see what are the changes which happen during the puberty. Okay, so first we have thick hairs growing in the armpit and the genital area. Then we also have hairs growing on arms and legs. Then we have skin becoming oily and developing pimples. Pimple is like not like always it has to happen. In most of the cases, pimples are seen on the skin. And then there are development of the secondary sexual characters, like in case of girls it is development of breast, and in case of males it is growth of beard, facial hair. And in case of girls, the process of menstruation starts. What is menstruation? That we'll see in detail as we proceed ahead. And in boys, the voice start to deepen, crack, and facial hairs are seen. Okay, so these were the various changes which happens during puberty. Now let's start studying the male and female reproductive system, the various parts of it, starting with the female reproductive system. So female reproductive system is located within the pelvic cavity, entirely within the pelvic cavity. There is no external part in it, and it comprises the following structure. First, ovary. So they give rise to the female gamete or egg, and each of this ovary will release one ovum every month, and that happens through the process of menstruation. So we'll just see this structure with the help of a 3D diagram. So let's see the female reproductive system first. So here is the female reproductive system, as you can see, which has various parts in it. We have two ovaries over here, and following the ovary we have a long tube-like structure which is the fallopian tube. Okay, so let's see the different parts of fallopian tube. So this is the ovary, and the fallopian tube is divided into three parts. Okay, the funnel-like structure, this is called as infundibulum, and the middle structure. So basically the ovum is released, and this funnel-like structure holds it. This finger-like structure are called as fimbriae. Okay, and so as we had seen, for every month one ovum will be released, which is a part of the menstrual cycle, and then the fallopian tube, it will pass through the fallopian tube to go into the ampulla and the isthmus region, and then it will, if the fertilization happens, then it will develop into zygote and it will enter the uterus. So this is the uterus over here, and then this long tube-like structure over here. Here we have the cervix, and this is the vagina, and both together combined are called as birth canal, since this is the route by which the childbirth takes place. So here we can see the various parts of the female reproductive system. So we have the ovary, the fallopian tube, the uterus, cervix, and the vagina. Let's see their function as well. So fallopian tubes, they are also called as oviducts. This is the second name of fallopian tube. Oviducts, because duct means the tube-like structure which will carry the ovum in it. And these tubes arise from ovaries, as you can see over here, and the function is to carry the egg once it is released into the uterus, where it can fuse with the sperm, that is a male gamete. And then uterus, as you can see, it is a large muscular organ present in the pelvic cavity, and this is a part which plays a very important role in menstrual cycle. It has various layers in it. The innermost layer of the uterus is called endometrium layer, and its thickness, the thickness of this layer varies during the menstrual cycle. So this is the main function of uterus, that is it nourishes the fetus in it, the embryo formation. Once the embryo is implanted, the fetus is nourished in the uterus. Then we have cervix. So it is a circular muscular ring which is present at the lower end of the uterus and which dilates at the time of delivery. And then finally we have vagina, and outside to that is the external female genitalia. So it is a muscular tube-like structure present at the lower end of the cervix, and the function of it is to provide pathway for the entry of penis and thus the sperms, that is a male gamete, which will finally enter and reach to the fallopian tube to undergo fertilization, to complete the process of reproduction. So the egg, or which is formed, the ovum which is formed, it is formed under the influence of female sex hormones, which is estrogen and progesterone, and this process is called as oogenesis. Okay, so this was all about the female reproductive system. If anyone has any query, please do type in the chat box and let us know if you have any question or if any point you haven't understood, or else we'll move ahead to the male reproductive system. So yes, whoever are watching, please comment in the chat box and let us know whether you have understood. Fine, thank you. Yeah, let's move ahead to the male reproductive system. Okay, so these are the different parts of male reproductive system. Let's see them one by one. We have first the testis, which is a site for production of sperms. Okay, so there are two testes present in a bag-like structure which is called as scrotum, which holds them. Now, one interesting feature about it is this lies outside the body, and it is present in that because for the development of sperm, it needs 2 to 3 degrees Celsius lower temperature than a normal body temperature. What is a normal body temperature? Yes, it is 37 degrees Celsius. But for development of sperms, it requires slightly lower temperature. So hence they are present in this scrotum, which hangs outside the body, so that a low temperature is maintained. Then we have the sperm duct. So these are the thin ducts which arise from the testis, which are going to carry the sperms further. And then we have the prostrate gland. So as the sperm ducts proceed, we have two glands which come into picture. One is prostrate gland, and also we have seminal vesicles, which is not mentioned here, but this is an additional information we need to know. We have seminal vesicles over here and the prostrate gland. Both of them contribute to the component of semen. Okay, because sperm needs some fluid medium to flow or to swim. Since we have seen before that sperms are the one which are motile. So since they are motile, they need some medium to swim or flow. So that is provided by the secretion of prostrate gland and seminal vesicles, and they also provide nourishment to the sperms. Okay, and then finally we have urethra, and then we have other few glands also, like we have the corpus gland, and finally we have the urethra. Now urethra is again a long tube-like structure which provides the exit for both urine and the semen. Okay, through the penis, which is the external male genitalia. Okay, let's see the 3D structure of the male reproductive system. Yeah, so this is the male reproductive system, as you can see. So we have first the testis, which are present in the scrotum, and then arising from the testis is a long tube-like structure. So these are the sperm ducts, and then finally they pass through beyond the urinary bladder. This is the urinary bladder, and then they get connected to the prostate gland and the seminal vesicles, and as discussed before, the secretion of both of which helps the sperm to nourish and as well also provide the medium. So these tiny glands are the corpus gland, and then it finally leads to the urethra, which is a long tube-like structure, as you can see here. The urethra, the medium for the exit for both urine and semen, and then finally we have penis, which is the male external genitalia. The front part of penis is enlarged, also called as glans penis, which provides it the extra sensitivity. So this was all about male and female reproductive system. Now let's understand the process of fertilization. Okay, so now we have studied about the male and female reproductive system. Male reproductive system, it will produce the sperms and then finally release them into the vagina, from where the sperms will flow and reach to the fallopian tube, where we already have the female gamete, that is ovum, present over there. So once the fusion of the sperm and ovum takes place, it takes place in the fallopian tube. Okay, so as you can see over here, once this ovum gets fertilized by the sperm, so this is the structure of ovum, and then we have various sperm, out of which only one sperm will fertilize the nucleus of the egg cell or the female gamete or ovum, and then after that the process of zygote formation will start. Okay, so we have first it will divide, the zygote will be formed, and then it will divide into 2 cells, and then finally into 4, 8, and like that it will keep on dividing by the time it passes through the fallopian tube and enters into the uterus for implantation. Okay, so yeah, so that's what is discussed over here. The entire process for the fertilization and steps followed after fertilization. Okay, fine. So now once the fertilization happens, once the zygote is formed and it gets implanted, then next step will be the embryo formation. Okay, so how the embryo formation will take place? So basically there is a specialized structure which helps in the embryo formation. So the tissues between the growing embryo and the mother's uterine walls form the placenta. Okay, so placenta is a very important structure which plays an important role in the development of the fetus or the baby, and the function of placenta is to provide nutrition to the embryo until its birth. Okay, so yeah, thank you Pranati. So the hormones estrogen and progesterone, okay, these we know that these are the female sex hormones, right? And what is the male sex hormone, by the way? We all know the male sex hormone is testosterone, so which helps in the process of the formation of the male gametes. So both estrogen and progesterone help in maintaining the placenta and the fetus inside the uterus. So normal gestation period means the pregnancy period, is a technical term for pregnancy. The gestation period in humans is 38 weeks, which is like around 9 months. Okay, so during this 9 months, lot of processes takes place, like step by step various organs are developed and the fetus develops. As you can see, this is the placenta, the sac-like structure, and we have the umbilical cord which connects the placenta to that of the baby. Since we know, like, this is the connection between the mother and the fetus, through which it can get nutrition, and it can also throw out the waste products. Okay, so in this entire period of 9 months, various organs are developed step by step, and once the fetus is completely ready, then the process of delivery begins. So once the 9 months get over, once all the organs are fully developed, once the fetus is fully developed, the uterine contractions begin under the influence of various hormones. Okay, so uterine contraction means the entire uterus, it will start contracting so that it will push the baby to come out of the birth canal, that is the cervix and the vagina. Okay, so uterine contractions start, and the major hormone which plays role in the uterine contraction is oxytocin. This is a hormone which causes the uterine contractions, and it affects the cervix to dilate it to allow the baby to pass outside the mother's body. Okay, so in this way a natural delivery of the child takes place. Okay, fine. So here is another question: what changes are observed in the uterus if fertilization does not occur? Okay, so whatever we have seen before, that will happen only if the fertilization happens, because after fertilization only the zygote will be formed, the embryo will be formed, and then the fetus will be formed. But if fertilization does not happen, then what will happen to the uterus? Yes, can anyone tell? Whoever are watching, please try to answer. Yeah. So what will happen if the fertilization does not occur? So following are the changes which will happen. So basically it is a part of menstrual cycle. First is the extra lining of uterus degenerates, and those degenerated fragments will start discharging out through vagina along with the unfertilized egg, and hence the menstruation takes place. So this is what overview of the menstrual cycle is. So generally the first 3 to 5 days of menstrual cycle, the uterine line breaks down and the menstruation occurs. The menstrual flow occurs during the first 3 to 5 days, and then after that the uterine lining again starts thickening, and around the 14th day, ovulation occurs. Ovulation means the release of ovum from the ovary, and then after that the uterine lining continues to thicken. Okay, and if fertilization does not occur, then again the uterine wall starts degenerating and the menstruation again begins. So this is a cycle. But if the fertilization takes place, then what we have seen in the previous slide, that will happen. Okay, fine. Now moving on to another important part. So we have discussed the male and female reproductive organs. We have discussed how fertilization occurs, how the embryo and the fetus is developed. Now this is something more practical thing in our day-to-day life which we need to know about reproductive health. Since reproduction is a very important part of everyone's life, and there are a lot of things associated with it which we also need to know. So that we are going to discuss in reproductive health. So reproductive health is defined as a state of well-being in terms of safe sex, reproductive fitness, and absence of any reproductive diseases. Okay, so mainly the diseases associated with reproductive system are called as sexually transmitted diseases, also known as STDs. Okay, so we need to know about it, since this is also part of awareness and also a part of our syllabus, obviously. So let's discuss something about it. So there are various types of sexually transmitted diseases. We have taken 3 examples over here, the most common ones. So first we have gonorrhea, which is caused by bacteria. Syphilis is another STD which is also caused by bacteria, And when we say sexually transmitted diseases, they are transmitted through sexual contact. Okay. And AIDS, that is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, okay, which is also caused by HIV, that is a human immunodeficiency virus, is also an STD, sexually transmitted disease, which so this sexual transmission of disease can happen when the entire process of reproduction or the sexual act is done without taking safe measures. What are those? We will see ahead. Yeah, thank you, Jyoti. So we are almost towards the end of this today's session. So please watch till end, and if you have any query, please feel free to ask. You can also share this with your friends so that they also get benefited. Yeah. So what measures have to be taken so that we can. Yeah, Jyoti, we are going to discuss about heredity and evolution in the next session, since that is also a chapter which is very much in our syllabus. So we are going to have a separate session, again a one-shot session in biology for this chapter. So there we'll discuss. So please do attend that. Okay. So we have already given that thing in the timetable. So that time we will discuss. Okay. So yeah, so what measures can be taken? So generally the first step is awareness, which has to be there are various mediums which is required to spread this awareness. It can be either media or through sex education in schools, to get a proper information about puberty, adolescence, reproductive organs, STDs, etc. And also educating people, especially those who do not have the means to get this knowledge, educating them, and especially women, pregnant women, about the postnatal and prenatal care, that is during the pregnancy and the childbirth. Awareness of controlled population growth, okay, is also, so the family planning, everything comes under this itself. One of the very important step in maintaining a proper reproductive health is use of contraception or contraceptives. What are those? Contraceptives aims to control birth. Contraception aims to control birth using contraceptive. So contraception or contraceptive is anything which prevents fertilization of ovum during sexual intercourse. Okay. So prevention of conception. Conception means that is another technical term of the fertilization. Okay. So okay, Jyoti is asking a question. Please tell the importance of variation. Okay. So let me just complete this slide, then we will see this importance of variation. Okay. So yeah, fertilization of women during sexual intercourse, it is called contraception. And an ideal contraceptive, there are some features of ideal contraceptive. It should be user friendly, that is easy to use and easily available. It should be effective and reversible with least side effects. Okay. Yeah, so anyways, let's come to the doubt, importance of variation. So we know that variation, it means that the progeny or the offspring is not exactly same to that of parent, but it has some different features. Okay, that the main importance of variation is for survival. Okay, because as we know, the environment changes and lot of other factors come into picture which can make it difficult for an organism to survive. So if there are certain changes, if they takes place in the organism, that is the variation, then it can lead to a healthy individual. So variation leads to more diversity. It leads to the proper survival tactics, and also leads to a healthy individual, and it can help in the continuation of the species or the population. Okay, that is the importance of variation. Yeah, moving ahead, there are different types of contraceptives. Okay, so we have the natural or traditional method, barrier method, intrauterine devices, IUDs, the certain devices which are inserted into the vagina to prevent the contact of sperm and ovum. See, all of these contraceptive methods are mentioned over here: injection and implants, surgical methods, oral contraceptives or pills. All of them, they aim mainly to prevent the fertilization of sperm and ovum. Some of them, they kill the sperm so that they don't come in contact with ovum. Some of them do not let them come in contact. So yeah, Okay, so Jyoti is asking one more question. Question board में पूछते हैं okay, question होते हैं या कुछ और Okay, so the questions which are asked in boards, they are obviously they are mainly based on your textbook. If you are from CBSE, it is NCERT. If you are from state board, whatever book the state board has, which has been preferred, so obviously we should be very thorough with that book. So don't just depend upon the questions which are given in the exercise at the end of the book. We need to know the entire chapter thoroughly. Okay, so based on that only the questions will be asked. Okay, so they can be anything, not just the questions which are given in exercise. Obviously that we need to revise, since that the questions which are given in the book at the end, they will help us to understand what type of questions can be asked. But we should not just depend on that. We should be knowing the entire syllabus and the topic properly, so that if any question is asked, we will be able to answer easily. Okay, so make sure you prepare well, and that's what we are going to discuss in the sample paper questions. So as I said, after these one shots get over, we are going to start sample paper discussion, in which we are going to tell you the different types of questions which can be asked on these topics, and we will also tell the solution. Okay, so that will also help you to score well in your boards. Okay, so yeah, so here is another question. Reproduction is essentially a phenomena that is not for the survival of the individual but for stability of a species justify. So this is one example of a question application, or like based question, or HOTS, you can say high order thinking type of question. That so reproduction is not just for survival but also for stability of species. This is a statement we need to justify. Okay, so anyone has any clue, can type in the chat box, or we'll discuss the answer. So let's discuss. So see, so here's the answer. Competition of food and predation is common in nature, and if there is no reproduction, species would become extinct. Obviously, reproduction is required to continue the life further. If animals don't reproduce, the entire species will get extinct. Okay. Hence, reproduction is linked to the population of species. New individuals carries the lineage of their parents, means they carry the hereditary trait of their parents. More number of organisms produces counterbalances the mortality that arises due to various factors. Like this, reproduction helps in maintaining stability of species. What this statement means, more number of organism produces counterbalances the mortality that arises due to variation. Mortality means death rate over here. So more number of organism counterbalance means it balances. So suppose there are lot of organism, and there are some organisms which are dying because of various factors, whatever it can be. So even if lot of organisms die, but if reproduction is going on continuously, that will help the species to stabilize. Okay, so that's what they will help in maintaining the stability of the species. The species won't get extinct because of whatever natural calamity which might come. And that is what the problem with dinosaurs was. Dinosaurs got extinct at a point because whichever dinosaurs which were killed by the natural calamity, the reproduction rate was not that high compared to that. If the reproduction rate would have been higher, even if lot of dinosaurs were killed, some at least would have lived alive, but that couldn't happen. So that's why they got extinct. Okay, so that's what this question is about. So yes, anyone has any doubt in whatever we have discussed, please do type in the chat box. If you are watching this video later at any point, you can leave a comment, you can leave your question as a comment, and we'll surely help you out to get the correct answer of it. So I hope you have understood whatever topics we have discussed over here, and yeah, I'll just give you 1 minute. Okay, Jyoti is asking a question. Do ants reproduce? Yes, Jyoti, ants also reproduce, since they are also living creatures. So they reproduce, they undergo sexual reproduction, and yeah, so they very well reproduce. Any other question? Please feel free to ask. We have a lot of time with us. We can surely take up a lot of questions. Whatever is there in your mind, you can ask, because don't just study for exam point of view, study for understanding the concept, so that whatever question they ask you now or further, you'll be able to answer it nicely, and most importantly, you'll carry that knowledge with you, because there are a lot of things in biology which are needed, that information is needed in our day-to-day life, or it's always good to know about our body or the nature around us. Okay, so feel free to ask whoever are watching. Yeah, welcome Jyoti. So yes, anyone else has any doubt, or Jyoti, even if you have any doubt, you can ask on this topic of how do organisms reproduce. Anything from plant reproduction or human reproduction, asexual reproduction, any query, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I have a question for all of you. Yes, anyone? Yeah, so I have one question. Have you heard about twins? Okay, I'm sure you all must have heard about twins, right? Do you know how are twins formed? Yes, you must have surely seen twins in your life, either in your neighborhood or some of your relative. So why do they look same? Okay, so let me explain you. So twins are of mainly two types. Two types of twins are possible. One we call it as fraternal twins, and one we call as identical twins. Okay, so two types of twins are there, fraternal twins and identical twins. Okay, so in case of fraternal twins, okay, what happens is there is one ovum which comes from one ovary, and at the same time one more ovum comes from the another ovary. Now we have seen that in reproduction, in every month, in case of female reproductive system, every month only one ovum is produced, but sometimes it might happen that in the same month two ovums are produced from both the ovaries. So two ovums are produced. In identical twins, there is only one ovum. Okay, we'll get back to this later. First, let's complete fraternal twins. And then when two different sperms will fuse with them, okay, two different sperms will fuse, and it will lead to the formation of what will be formed? Zygote will be formed, right? A zygote will be formed. So two zygotes will be formed in this case. Okay, what happened in 1 month? Two ovums are produced which were fused by two different sperms, and two different zygotes were produced. Okay, so they will give rise to two fetus or two child. Okay, so they can be anything. Okay, so this can be, they can be both male. Okay, it can be both male or both female, or one male or one female. Okay, it can be anything, since they are coming from two different ovum. So they will be like like same but not exactly same. Okay, they will be similar, very similar, highly similar rather, highly similar, but they won't be exactly same. Okay, in case of identical twins, what happens is they fuse only one ovum fused with one sperm and it gives rise to one zygote. Okay, till here it's a normal process. Now what happens after this is, while dividing into two parts, they get divided into two different zygotes. Okay, they get divided into two different zygotes, and then these two develop separately as two different fetus or child, and that's why they are exactly same. Okay, and that's why they are called as identical twins, and they have always have to be either both male or both female. Okay, it can't happen that one is male, one is female, because they are coming from the same zygote, so their genetic material, the DNA and everything is exactly same. So these are the different two types of twins, and this is how they are formed. Okay, understood? Yeah, exactly. One fertilized egg splits into two babies, right? So yes, anyone else has any query? Please do ask. This was an additional information on how our twins formed. Yes, whoever are watching, I hope you have understood the concepts. If not, you can ask in chat box, or even after this video, after this live gets over, you can leave a comment to get your query solved. And do remember, we have more such one-shot sessions coming up to cover the other chapters and topics. And we are also going to discuss sample paper questions. So please do attend that as well. If you haven't subscribed to Practically channel, then do subscribe, download the Practically app and register to start a free trial. Yes, so thank you very much for attending today's session. See you all in the next session. Okay, thank you.